Jen, ready? Yeah. All right, hello.
All right, hello everyone. Welcome to Unleashing Microsoft Teams Part 4. What a call we have today. I'm going to do my best to host with all the guns that we have joining here from Telstra. But a couple things to call out. This call will be recorded and we'll follow up via email with everyone within 24 hours of the call. And also, if you're interested to know how we're filming this today, we're using NDI or Network Device Interface. So if you click on the Q&A in the live event, we have a link there with more details. It's an amazing experience and we hope you enjoy it today. Now, if you joined before, I'm Jace Marino over on the left there, Teams Platform Lead for our Customer Success Organization. It's an absolute Ali Fahey. She was the former Customer Success Manager for Telstra, who we're going to introduce here in a moment, who's now moved into a global black belt role for a modern workplace organization. So Sally, thank you, first of all, for making this all happen, connected us to the guys, and for joining us today.
Thanks, Jess.
Jim Garland. So Jim is the brains behind the operation who's producing the NDI capabilities that we talked about earlier. So massive shout out to Jim and his production capabilities. And then we have a team of our best customer success managers to answer your questions via the chat. So make sure to ask questions as we go through today. Joining us for the first time, just a quick background here, is we started these Unleashing Teams calls to share with you how your peers around the globe are delivering true innovation in their organizations and transformation. And that's not just a cliche term. You're going to see that today, and you've probably seen it if you've joined some of these before. But we're also sharing the journeys because we all know this doesn't happen overnight. And it's really important to see the journey from end to end so you can hopefully deliver some of this in your organizations. And every time we run one of these Unleashing Teams events, while Teams will absolutely be the front and center of everything that we're talking about, this isn't just about Teams and this isn't just about Microsoft technology. This is about leveraging the investments you've already made in order to bring them to life. And let me just make sure you're getting my screen again. So again, leveraging the investments you've made and bringing them to life. And what's critical to effectively doing this is the approach. Now, we often say this, but productivity isn't just about the tool, it's about the approach. And today's guests have one of the best approaches that we've ever seen. In fact, I took down a couple notes when I was talking to the team that you're about to meet, and when we had our first discussion as we were planning for this event, and they put a massive smile on my face because they were such great approaches, and they sing so much to or speak so much to the culture of Telstra and how it's enabled so much of what you're going to see here today. So with that, what I heard from Richard, who you're about to meet, was that Telstra unleashed business-led innovation. We'll explain what that means here in a moment. Because the world's changing around us, and one small team cannot lead our innovation efforts alone. And so again, you'll hear this today, how embedded Telstra's culture is into all the success that you're going to see. And with that, it's my pleasure to introduce you to the Telstra team that we have here today. So gents, if you don't mind, I might go through these real quick just to introduce you because all of you are going to come in and join us at various parts of the discussion. But the four gentlemen over on the right-hand side who run and operate Telstra's field digitization team, which we're going to talk about in a second, with Richard leading the group, Dan running analytics, and Marcus and the product owner. Marcus is the product owner, and then we Mr. Movember Brody. You're going to see his killer stash here in a moment as the project lead. And then last but certainly not least, over on the left there is Mr. Nathan Backers. And so Nathan was formerly part of this same team with the four gentlemen you have here, and since has kicked off Telstra's. So gents, it's an honor to have you all here today. Very excited to spend some time with all of you. Richard, if you can give us a little background on Telstra's field digitization team or your center of excellence for your field technicians. What do you size, et cetera?
Yeah, sure. Thanks, Jace. Yeah, so hopefully, I'm assuming that most people are Australians on this call, so people will know the Telstra brand, but we support our field technicians, so about 2,300 people in our side of the business, out there installing modems, fixing the network, out at kind of, enterprise customers, doing all sorts of things around this great country. So we have this really kind of massive kind of scale and breadth around Australia. And a couple of years ago, we've just gone through a massive transformation and put in a new workforce management system and probably spent 2 years of big IT kind of getting all the system and everything kind of built. But while we were kind of doing that massive project, we kind of like lost a little bit of our focus on innovation and being agile and fast. And we kind of the whole business had turned its attention to that. So we came out of that and we thought, OK, now we've got all the work flowing out to people. We really need to organise the entire digital ecosystem or the digital world for our technicians, and we formed up this program called the Autonomous CT, and we started looking at things like headsets and chatbots, and started to look at how we drive productivity and our quality and our waste, and as we were doing that and we were wrestling this big kind of ecosystem, and it was really kind of a big kind of business-led change, and we were kind of looking at it as a project team, and our take on it at first was, Microsoft Teams, that's a replacement for Link, so we're all going to have a different communication tool coming through, but as that kind of came out and we started looking at Teams, and then this person popped up, Nathan Backers, who said, hey, I've been having a bit of a play with these power apps, and these power apps are quite cool, and look at what we can do with a bit of a simple process and capturing issues from the field. Have you thought about power apps? And we didn't have a clue what it was. And as we started looking at it, and I think it was called Flow at the time, but with Power Automate and Power BI, we started to look at it and think, actually, this choose, which is actually to bring everything together and to really organize things. So so Nathan being kind of himself kind of from the field, and we had a couple of other people in the team as well from the field, we found suddenly we had these tools that people who knew what the problems were or what the challenges were could bring everything together really fast in kind of a low code approach and start to solve some of our problems. So as we were digitizing, one of the kind of big challenges was we didn't just want to create more stuff. I was a digitization lead, trying to put out digital fires, trying to put out apps, trying to shut stuff down. And we didn't just want to create more and more. So we came up with this strategy called Tech Plus and Leader Plus, where we started to put everything together. And as we started to do that, then all things like web forms and inspections started to kind of come together really beautifully into this one place where we could manage it, we could control the kind of the quality. And then our Power BI really started to take off, and that started to look beautiful too, and that started to integrate. And then we saw the opportunity to bring our change and comms into it as well, and our communications to the field. So we kind of started to go on this strategy where everything really started to converge for us. And people like Nathan, who you'll hear from, people like Dan Gray-Hobbs, people like Marcus, Brody, we took our superstars in our business that were always people that wanted to make things better, improve things, had kind of, and we brought this group together, and what they've done, I'm blown away by all the time. It's pretty spectacular, and we're really kind of keen to share it. And look, we're a big field workforce, but we're not a huge digitization team. We're a few people that do change and comms. We're a few people that do analytics. We're a few people that do power apps. But actually, the bang for buck and the change that we have on our workforce and the impact that we have and how we've allowed them with their tablets to kind of transform and to be kind of a really, an engaged workforce that has all these tools and apps and quick kind of solutions for them. We feel super proud of what we've created and what we've done. And I became a bit of a Microsoft fanboy along the way, which I never expected to happen too. So that kind of happened as well. So, but I'll hand over to the team, Jason, and let them kind of talk a little bit more about the journey, I reckon.
Look, it was beautifully said. If I might just call out one quick thing is what I find so profound about what you're doing and what some of the more, and forgive me for using the term center of excellence, because I know that's some of the more successful modern folks from the business units or the organizational teams that they're working with directly. That experience, you speak their language. which, and it just goes to show with only 15 people supporting 2,300 and what everybody will see here as we go through the discussion today, what an incredible impact you're making. So again, beautifully said. Thank you so much for covering that. What we thought we'd do real quick is wanted to show you this little animated experience that we're going to build 3 separate times today so you can see what this journey looked like visually. And so again, we're going to come back to this, but phase 1, when I was talking to the gents and tried to put this into a journey, phase 1 was really about driving business innovation. So forget me, gents. It's probably a ridiculous image to represent your field technicians. But where the field technicians sit are obviously out in the field talking to customers. And then you've got the digitization team led by Richard, who you just heard from, and the 4 other gents who we're going to talk through in a moment, where you work through HQ and you're almost a conduit of sorts to help them leverage technology that they have to get work done better. And again, we'll show a couple of examples here in a moment. What we thought might be cool, though, is as we go into driving business innovation, Richard, if you guys think about and where do projects begin in the first place when you're engaging with your field techs?
Yeah, sure. Just I'll come off mute, Chase. But this is kind of like, this is where it gets really interesting though, because it can, talk about a project and where they begin, but it's not traditional anymore. It's not like I'm going to write this huge requirement document. We're going to engage. We're going to kind of take the slow path to our big solution. That happens as well. But actually, we go and grab requirements and opportunities all over the place, like seriously. So it might be that somebody is running like a leads program and they want technicians to grab leads out in the fields that we're then going to convert. And we can very quickly kind of spin up a leads application that grabs all the information and tracks that. It might be that suddenly a natural artifacts, and again, we grab all this information and we wrap it in with an artifact. Or it might be that actually we need to go and change a process and we need to make something a lot more productive. Our overtime or our how we kind of engage our admin groups, and then there is like a really clear benefit and a business case and kind of value back into the business. So what we find is, because we can kind of move pretty quick and pretty fast, we can kind of just jump onto passion projects. We can jump onto kind of consolidation projects. We can jump onto business benefit projects really fast. And one of them don't kind of feel uncomfortable about building something, trialing something out really fast, but then kind of throwing it away as well. So the team are kind of like, they do the traditional stuff. Everything's kind of in a Jira backlog. It's kind of groomed. It's kind of brought through. But as you kind of find, and the way the team work is, the team get inspired by certain ideas or certain business problems, or I have this problem out here. I was talking to somebody in exchange and they're having this problem, and we can actually kind of almost go and become victims of our own success to a certain degree. Is that we can kind of find new things and new work and new ideas, and sometimes we put them out there and they don't work and we shut them off pretty quickly. But more 9 times out of 10, if we keep true to our vision of putting everything onto Tech Plus, bringing everything together and converging it, we find that works really beautifully as well. So our projects, do begin by us, by the business engaging us, by business benefits, by our problems. But the process, through Jira, it can actually look very different. It can just become a bit of a Teams chat and a bit of a, hey, look at this, I had this idea, and check this out, and then, hey, I think that could be great for this thing. So it can be really fast and really innovative as well, but we have to control. We don't want to just then suddenly just throw everything at the field. That's through the strategy we've had around Technician Plus and Team Leader Plus, is we make sure that everything is then quality checked. And, if it's official, it's going in there. And I think that's one of the challenges that you have now with things like Power Apps and Power BI. They're like the new PowerPoints and the new Excels and the new tools that people use. And we expect that everybody, and what Nathan's doing is creating a community of practice. We want everybody in the business to be able to use these tools, but also we need a way to be able to manage that into our workforce and make sure that, only certain things kind of go wild scale as well. So, so that's one of the things. I'm just kind of looking at the questions as well.
That's good. I might, if you don't mind, I was going to ask Marcus a quick question on the,
go for it.
on the, because look, brilliantly said. And I just, if I could summarize one quick thing that I loved speaking to you guys the first time we chatted, was that you're not trying to necessarily create perfection, right? No, don't get me wrong. We're all striving for that to some extent, but you're not waiting till the solution's perfect. Is you're going out, you're failing small, and you're reiterating as you go through. And I think that's such a brilliant approach. But Mark, the project's kind of started, what does that process look like? A lot of organizations are really curious, not only how to start these models, but how you're engaging constantly with the folks who you're building these solutions for.
Yeah, okay. I might just backpedal a little bit real quickly,
Sure.
because I had something ready here, which is an app that Nathan started for our front door. So this is how someone sort of quickly engages this. I've just sort of preloaded some stuff in here to show you. So they can quickly jump through here, pick the target system. In this case, I'll pick Lead Plus, a Superheroes Call. It's a new initiative. So to build an app with Superheroes Call, what's the basics of the requirements for it? You know, we'd expect not too much, maybe a paragraph in here. It doesn't have to be War and Peace. It's just to get your foot in the door, pretty much. And then pretty much based out if it's a part of the missions, or, you know, what are the benefits, monetary wise, etc. That sort of gives you a base priority. And once we get these submitted, that will pretty much be the foot in the door. These come through. We've got these that send by Flow or Power Automate, I should say. And instead of sort of spamming everyone via email, we'll send it to the relevant product owners straight through Teams. And then they can open up the submission from there to sort of look at it more in detail. Once we go through, you know, does it putting in a Power App, do we make another solution? We'll pretty much then put that, I guess, a traditional agile process where we do a discovery, get the basics. I like to ask sort of, what do you think it would look like? Draw it on a piece of paper or a spreadsheet or MS Paint, I don't care. I just want to have an idea of how the vision looks for you. And then that's something then we can sort of translate over into an app and, like Rich said, put through Jira and go through the normal motions to get the ball rolling on an app.
That's awesome. I love that little ad hoc demo right there. That's killer. I'm impressed so far, by the way, just to answer the question. No, so once you've gone through the process now, so you put it through Jira, you go through your process of multiple iterations, I'm assuming. What is the next step in terms of who supports the solution that you're delivering? And is that something that the field technician who pretty much enable these individual groups of users, and then they have to support it? Now I know the answer, but I think it's really important for the audience to hear.
Yeah, I guess like our two flagship apps, Technician Plus and Leader Plus, obviously myself and my counterpart Brad Redding, we own one of those each, and we maintain those. We're sort of moving into more that citizen developer model now, where people from other parts of the business, we may just assist them. Nathan will probably go into this in further depth, but you know, we are trying to get them to understand how the app works so they can maintain it, or at least maintain the data sets in the background in SharePoint. So generally we are a point of contact for support, but we are trying to sort of move it more to self-service for the business units that will sort of have the inception of that app and want to maintain that app. Obviously it's easy enough with a little bit of training to teach them the basics and get the ball rolling so they can maintain their product moving forward.
It's awesome. Last quick question for you guys. Working with IT, this is a question we get all the time when it comes to citizen development and these processes. What's your connection like, if at all, into the Telstra IT department?
It's very minimal. Nathan can probably elaborate on this better, but it's a rare occasion that we would have to engage anyone or anything to do with IT to maintain our platforms and products.
I mean, that's brilliant, though. We'll go into that at the end, but that's so much speaks to your culture again that I mentioned, and the consistency of the solutions that you're building. So Richard and Marcus, thank you so much. Really helpful. With that, thinking what we could do is look, every solution, every good solution and every good operational model, such as a center of excellence, needs to have a good communications strategy that goes along with analytics, and how do you leverage the two together to make sure that, Richard, you touched on this briefly earlier, but that folks are getting access to the right applications, they know what's important and needs to be leveraged. And so Dan and Brody, I'm hoping you guys might be able to walk us through this slide here that you put together on the comms and analytics side of your strategy and your operational model.
Yeah, certainly can, Jace. So this one probably articulates how we operate and use the Power Platform holistically to, I suppose, constantly review, as you said there with our Power BI, stop, start and continue what we're actually doing. So we use a lot of the information that we're capturing through our applications, such as Technician Plus, the front door application, Leader Plus. We actually capture all the interactions our users are performing on those platforms. So we can see things like the communications. We can actually get hits on how often they're being viewed, by who, and we can actually track the relevance of those communications. A lot of that is underpinned by Power Automate, which is definitely my favourite tool on the Power Platform. I love using Power Automate because I think we can solve for a lot of bespoke business problems with it. So it actually enables us to be even more quick from inception to delivery. So I think Power Automate is a very powerful tool, but we use that to store, I suppose, push a lot of the notifications out to our users or to our stakeholders in terms of, for a front door application or a front door process, for example, when they've come to request us with something, we have events that trigger updates to them, so they're not constantly having to engage us. We also have information pushed down to our users for communications. So when a communication request is raised through that front door application, it goes down through an approval process, so it's vetted correctly. And then it comes back into our users once the approval process has gone through, and they can view that through Technician Plus and Leader Plus. So our field technicians and our leaders get those communications in real time, but that vetting process is still in place. So we use those two platforms interchangeably on a day-to-day basis. From the analytics perspective, I'll probably let Dan speak to that a little bit more because that is his domain, but he's developed some really good insights in terms of how we are using those communications and those insights to push information down to our users and make sure it's being delivered at the right time, and that it is still relevant. So I'll hand over to Dan there. He can give us a bit of an overview.
Thanks.
Yeah, brilliant. Thanks, Brody. So from my perspective, I actually lead our analytics chapter as well as our communications and change chapter. And those two might seem quite different, but they actually work really well together. So I'm able to work with the team here. So when the field digi guys actually create a new Power App or a new solution, I'm able to then obviously look at it from the reporting aspect to, okay, are our team members using it? But then also use the platforms like Technician Plus and Leader Plus to actually then get the communications in front of the users as well. So that little screenshot you've got on the left-hand corner there, you've actually got a view that technicians can actually go in and see the communications, and they can actually scroll across any of the communications that we've actually sent out in the past 5 years. And on the home screen of Technician and Leader Plus as well, we have the latest updates for them front and center. So that's been really useful for us with the crazy year that we've had. So for those who aren't aware, if you're not Australian based, we had bushfires or wildfires that we started out at the start of this year. So a lot of our field team members were either close to or even impacted by some of those fires at the start of this year. So leveraging these tools that we already had in their hands, we're able to actually put important communications and safety messages in front of the technicians in, again, existing tools that they're already using to complete their daily tasks.
So that is such a profound statement right there, if I may. And sorry to cut you off for a sec, but and everyone's going to see this in a sec. We're going to spend some more details or time on Technician Plus and Leader Plus, which you guys have been talking about. But you're not only building the tools to improve the way that folks work, you're also sending the communications through those tools. And again, a small nuance there, but it's clearly led to an incredibly successful strategy for you guys. So again, apologies for cutting you off there for a second.
No, that's fine. Yeah, it's just changed the way basically that we've communicated with our people. So we've got around 2,000 technicians out and about in the field workforce, and they're across the country that is Australia as well. So it's not like they're all in one certain spot. We sometimes might not see our technicians for weeks and months on end because of their remote locations. Some work on islands, secluded by themselves. So face-to-face contact with their leaders isn't actually possible all the time. So that's why us having these solutions and actually then embedding comms and change into these solutions has been so powerful. And by the time we'd finished by the time the safety concerns had sort of reduced for our wildfires and bushfires, we were then changing those comms channels to COVID-19 communications. So during the pandemic, our technicians were still out and about servicing our customers with the safe protocols in place and masks and things like that. But it allowed us to actually put the communications and those safety messages front and center, so that when we did send them out to serve and connect our customers, they were doing it in a safe manner, and all the latest comms were front and center in their mind as well. And what you got on the bottom right-hand corner of the screen there is actually how we can actually then see that from our Power BI solutions as well. So we can see what our best mediums are. Is it a video? Is it a newsletter? And we can see also what time of day is best. And we use that data to then strategically target when we send communications out across the day and via what medium we send it out in as well. So bringing the whole platform together has really helped us in achieving that our techs can complete the task using a Power App, communicate via Teams. At the same time, we also put messages outbound in the Power Apps and visualize them in Power BI.
It's a beautiful circle of life you guys have created there. Hey, Dan, I might put you on the spot with one quick question, if you don't mind. Is there, as you've looked through that data, has anything surprised you that you've seen or stood out to you on the way that your field techs are interacting with the tools you put in their hands?
Yeah, definitely. So for us, videos, our technicians are out and about, they're on the road, and at the same time, they're sort of, our workforce management system sort of plans their day out for them. So it perfectly starts at the start of the day, and they have enough jobs until the end of the day. So what the tool has allowed us to do is sort of look at text-based communications and say, hey, maybe they're not the best solution for all. So what we've started to do is actually add videos and podcasts into our Power Apps as well. So our technicians can be driving from one job to another and actually listening to those communications as well. And we've sort of got a goal that you can either read a communication or listen or watch, and you won't have any different messaging. It's all the same, and you can get that same message whether you're parked on the side of the road waiting for another job or if you're driving to another customer as well. So that for us has really changed the way that we communicate away from text and more into podcasts, because we know our technicians are driving and commuting most of the day.
That's brilliant. And again, I think that goes back to you all having been in that role before, right? All of you coming from the actual field technician role and understanding what that job is like. So again, really, it might sound simple to some folks, but that kind of empathy right there, I think, leads again to the success you've all had. So really appreciate you, Dan and Brody, sharing that. Look, so it's amazing to see the model here. And what we wanted to do next is show some of the fruits of the labor. And it's been talked about from most of the folks that we've heard from are these solutions Technician Plus and Leader Plus. So Nathan, who formerly worked for this group, and we're going to talk about his evolution here in a moment, but when he moved to the team, he helped create with the group here a couple of these solutions that you've heard reference. And I think, back to Richard's point earlier, is this is where this model became strategic, and Telstra realized, all right, there might be something here that we want to invest in a little bit further. And so Nathan, we actually, if you remember, we had a call with you a little over a year ago, and Microsoft's probably abusing their relationship with you at this point, because I think you've been on a million different calls with us. But if we could bother you one more time to walk the folks on the call who might be seeing this for the first time on what you did, what you and the team did with Technician Plus and Leader Plus here, this kind of hallmark solution that you built out of the field digitization team.
Yeah, thanks, Jace. G'day, everyone. Yeah, this is a great example, I guess, of how you can consolidate a number of different business processes into one place and then embed that into Teams to sit alongside all of the chat and collaboration tools, which our technicians then use on a daily basis. So a lot of our technicians, they'll spend the whole day without speaking to any of their counterparts other than digitally. A lot of them are on the road. They'll be out to different sites. Some of them work remote. So this application sort of provides that platform where they can go and access anything from communications to reporting to all of their web forms, which are redesigned or Marcus has redesigned and rebuilt into Technician Plus. And we've also created a version for our team leaders as well. So slightly different versions for our technicians and then also their people leaders. Leader Plus has sort of more of those tools focused towards learning and coaching and managing their team. So I guess we probably had a unique problem at Telstra when it comes down to the sense that we have all these technicians around the country who have various different processes which they used to access via different means. They might have one process which was on their tablet, they might have one process which was on their computer, and there were still a few processes floating around a couple of years ago which were all paper-based. So I think Technician Plus is a great example of how to firstly digitize these and then consolidate all of these into one place. So from a change in comms perspective, it's no longer go to this URL, go to this separate place, go to this document. It's go to Technician Plus. You'll find everything that you need in Technician Plus. And over the course of the 2 years where we've been building and expanding these tools, we've tackled around 70 different processes and tools, and that's obviously Brodie's team now that continues the development of those tools. We have around 1,200 daily active unique users which use both Technician Plus and Leader Plus. Around 12 million or more in annual business benefit, which we generate from the various tools which are digitized and automated in the Power Platform and then embedded within Teams. And whole in whole, just customer outcome wise and crisis management, we're able to spin up applications and sort of tools to manage processes that dynamically change. And a great example of that is Daniel already touched on, is the bushfires and obviously COVID over the last few months or 6 months or even longer than that now. So it's a great way to sort of dynamically build and change as processes adapt and rapidly change, which we don't necessarily have control over. So Technician Plus is probably one of our flagship applications at Telstra, and I think the field digitization team are a great example of how each business unit across Telstra, how we actually want them to operate, which sort of leads into the Power Factory, which I'll talk about a little bit later on.
That's brilliant. And Nathan, just real quick, like everybody else, you were a previous field technician. Did you have any formal technical training coming into this role? Did you need to use any coding to build something like this?
No, to be honest, I just come straight out of the field as a field technician. Didn't necessarily do any training outside of, viewing the many resources that are on YouTube and watching some of the videos on there on how to build Power Apps. You definitely don't need to have that background or coding experience to get started. And I think I'm a perfect example of that. I always tell people if I can do it, then anybody else can do it. It's been quite a journey, starting from a field technician, being out in the street, connecting wires in the street, going under people's houses, going in people's roofs, which I don't miss, to sort of sitting in an office and building applications. So it's been a fantastic change for me, and it's something completely different to where I probably would have seen myself a few years ago. But it's just a great example of you don't necessarily need that experience, and really ties into that citizen developer model as well.
Oh, that's great. And Nathan, and by the way, everything you just said, and then you go to saving the company almost $13 million, which is pretty incredible. So kudos. I know it wasn't just you, but kudos to you and the team on such an incredible solution. There's been a couple questions though on the chat, and it was touched on briefly earlier, but you guys mentioned that you've got field technicians that might work in remote locations where they don't have internet access. Does that process work, or can they get access to tools like this while remote, or is it just a subset of the tools that you've all built?
Yeah, there's a number of applications which we have to consider for offline usage. A great example of that is we have like remote poles and remote towers, which the technicians will have to go out and inspect. And in the case of a great example of that is in the bushfires, those towers might be damaged, so there won't be any mobile reception to that area. So to be able to get those processes to work, we need to build in the offline capability for those to work. And that typically means that we'll need to build that solution specifically so it's accessed in Power Apps, because obviously there's some limitations with embedding those within Teams. But also for our users to be able to, firstly download that data in an area where they're connected to the internet, and then they can go offline while storing that data in local collections and whatnot within the app. And then when they come back into connectivity, submit that data back to our data sources. So there are a few applications that we have built with that in consideration. A lot of that is tied into with our sort of audit applications, or those applications where our technicians will need to go out and inspect something, take photos, and then not always they'll have, reception in those areas. So we typically build those outside of Technician Plus and then link them into Technician Plus so we can sort of build that offline capability effectively.
Yeah, because the way I imagine this is just what I circled on the slide is you've got your popular apps and tools right there on the Technician Plus screen. So if I'm a field technician, I'm out in the bushfires, don't have connectivity, some of those applications sitting on there because of the way you've all built them with Power Platform, again, just to summarize it, they'd be able to fill in that information and it'll connect and submit when they're back online. Did I understand that correctly?
Yeah, 100%. Yep, exactly.
Awesome.
That works.
So again, thank you for walking us through this. Just a quick pause then. As I mentioned, we come back to that animation slide earlier. And so as your business is going through this transformation, as your executives in your organization has seen the impact of solutions like Technician Plus, Leader Plus, and the impact that you're all having, they said, all right, we want to drive innovation in additional business units now. And so we saw this slide earlier where we've got all of you sitting in the field tech digitization team. And Nathan, you got pulled over to start and work on the team that's starting the Power Factory. And your goal was, again, correct me if I'm wrong here, but how do we go work with other Telstra business units now to try to deliver the same thing? And so what we were hoping is if you could, now we've got, so this is sort of a field center of excellence for a particular team. Power Factory is operating now as a center of excellence for all of Telstra, where you're going to go around and try to replicate this in different business units. And so it's a really cool evolution of almost what is kind of like a hub and spoke model is the way that I'm envisioning it in my head. And we're hoping you might be able to walk us through some of the background on how your work streams here work and how you operate in a similar sense to what we discussed earlier.
Yeah, so I guess the story that you've heard from Richard and team is exactly where we want to get the rest of the business up to a standard of. What we noticed is using Power Platform and teams around Telstra, there's specific pockets of excellence. There might be specific teams in specific business units that are getting a tremendous amount of benefit out of it, and the field's a great example of that. What we essentially strive to do as part of the Power Factory is to help the rest of the business get up to that level where the field are at the moment, where they've basically got their own centre of excellence, they support their own tools, they have citizen developer programs within their own business unit. That's essentially what we will want the rest of our business to get up to. So Power Factory was created and we're a part of our global business services team. So we sit inside the business. And we have 4 main areas of focus, which we focus on. And the first one, and probably the most important to me, is community. So we want to get as many people in Telstra developing applications for themselves. As we've sort of touched on many times before in this call already, who better to build solutions than the people that face those problems every single day, and who better to know where to, the areas to focus on, where opportunities to digitize and automate than people that face those issues every day. So what we're doing is investing a lot of time and effort into our community in training and developing citizen developer capabilities across Telstra. We try to run a citizen developer course once every 2 weeks. So we have around 300 members of our community across Telstra who's registered interest and join our sessions. And then typically the way that we operate those sessions is we'll just have a business problem. It'll just be, might be something along the lines of, I get an Excel spreadsheet that comes to my inbox once every week and I have to manually go and take that data and put it into this system. And then in that 1 hour session, we might just show how to use Power Automate to pass that through Power Automate and then store that data into a SharePoint list or something like that, which we can then go and perform actions on. So we sort of start with a problem statement. And at the end of one of our sessions after an hour, we pretty much have a fully working productionized product that we can just either give to our users or they can go and try and build it themselves. So we have quite a lot of people that do develop applications and flows across Telstra. I think it's over 3,000 applications at Telstra and we have around over 8,000 flows. So there is definitely interest there in the platform, but I guess what our team also does, which is quite unique to some centre of excellences, is that we have a delivery pipeline as well. So our team, a relatively small team, we also build solutions on behalf of the business. And this is kind of just a stopgap until we get our community up to a point where they can start developing these more complex solutions by themselves. So our team's relatively new. We've only sort of been around for 1 quarter officially. And in that 1 quarter, we've developed solutions, or around 15 solutions, which have given back our business around $3.5 million worth of benefit back into our business, and also around 20,000 hours as well based on productivity. So quite a profound amount of benefit in a small amount of time. The other, and I know you sort of mentioned or asked this question to Marcus before, Jace, around IT and the relationship that we have with IT. We work closely with IT in our technology and platform stream or pillar, as you might call it. So a lot of this capability we're trying to unlock for our citizen developers, and obviously there's guardrails and whatnot that we have at Telstra in regards to security and processes that we need to follow to ensure it's just not open further, and we have some sort of guardrails up there to ensure that, there's no personal details or anything being leaked. So we work closely with our IT teams in this stream to ensure that, we can sort of revamp those processes, and a lot of those processes are actually being rebuilt into Power Apps to essentially manage processes for Power Apps, which is ironic, or teams. So yeah, we're heavily invested in that technology and platform and sort of developing the capability and skills in that space. And then also program operations. So, you know, how we structure our governance, our feasibility assessment process. We're under no impression that, you know, the Power Platform and Teams is the solution for every single IT problem. There is certainly, it's sort of served its place in, definitely in the IT landscape. But we just need to make sure that where we're building solutions, we don't become this shadow IT business, and that we're actually, you know, tying into our overall strategic IT roadmap for Telstra and aligned with those other, you know, programs that we have going on as well.
It's really well said, Nathan. I'm gonna. I didn't ask you this question when we were kind of chatting about the call, but just going back to this slide real quick. Honest question for you: do you think Power Factory would exist today if you guys didn't deliver the success that you did in the field digitization team?
No, definitely not. Okay. So I guess
I think that's. Go ahead. Sorry.
I was just about to say, I guess a lot of the exposure came, and I think it was a year to the dot almost this time last year when we presented at Ignite over in Orlando, our story about Technician Plus. And I guess that's sort of when the ears pricked up across the business and a lot of exposure. And we came back and told our story about, you know, these people from Australia that went and presented in front of thousands of people and told our story. And that's sort of when the rest of the business was like, oh, wow, they might be onto something here, you know. There's some cool stuff being delivered. And I guess that was probably the start of when it really started to gain momentum to the beast it is now.
I think it's such an important point, because most organizations want to build the Power Factory first. And don't get me wrong, I understand it, but it might have never happened if you guys hadn't enabled and had the leadership that trusted your field team to first show success. And again, small opportunities that started out and became incredibly strategic solutions, and then it led to the model. And we've seen this with a lot of organizations who have slowly built the internal support by proving this success works. And the reason I'm saying this, because we also see a lot of organizations that are the opposite, and they block everything. So the field digitization team can't exist without the Power Factory. And there's no right or wrong model. And we were talking about this on the pre-call about sort of freedom within limits, but I think there needs to be a balance. And you guys are such a cool and incredible example of where this balance has just absolutely paid dividends for the organization. Look, we're gonna talk about the evolution here. Is there anything that you want to address, or do you want to pop into the operational model and your guys your flow chart that you gave me from Discover to Evolve?
Yeah, I guess, as I sort of mentioned before, we're sort of at the initial stages of the Power Factory. Essentially, where we want to get with the Power Factory is we don't need a delivery team. The business will be up to a stage as the field digitization team is, where they're delivering solutions on their own, they're supporting solutions on their own, and our team's role is to essentially assist that process and provide the tools to make life easier for those citizen developers. So while we are still delivering a tremendous amount of benefit through our delivery pipeline, our end goal is for our community to essentially, you know, take on these solutions themselves. And I guess we're sort of in between sort of phase 2 and phase 3 at the moment where we're at.
That's awesome. And then so back to real quick on the operational model. So this might be a step back, so forgive me, we can cover this really quickly, but I just think it's important for folks to see what your process looked like. And we talked through this with the team earlier, but could you maybe give us a little bit of insight here into how your timeline works when someone comes to you and you've got an opportunity?
Yeah, sure. So we're actually building a tool to assist with this process called the Powerhouse, which is essentially a tool for our customers and also our app maker community. So if somebody has, I guess, a solution that they feel is best placed on the Power Platform, we have an engagement portal in there. We have the ability for users to be able to go and put in some metrics which determines, you know, what the benefit might be of that solution, whether it's strategic, cost avoidance, productivity based. Also, it ties closely into our environment strategy and our connectors, which we're working with IT to sort of refine the processes around there and how people request new environments, or if we can consolidate the solutions as a part of other environments. But essentially what we're trying to maintain with this product development timeline is speed, because I guess that's probably the best thing about the Power Platform is technically you can develop solutions. So while we sort of try and manage all of our backlog and our pipeline in an agile fashion, there are some parts of the process which I guess that we sort of made Power App specific, just so we can maintain that speed. And I think 15 solutions from a team of 6 people in the space of 1 quarter is probably a good estimate to that sort of speed.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, you guys are breaking a lot of conventional norms, or I think a lot of assumptions that organizations have. And maybe not today, because we've all seen, I think we can do a lot more than we thought, a lot faster than we thought we could over the past 8 months, with everything that happened with COVID. But God, your timelines are so impressive. And I know this isn't just the Power Factory. I mean, you guys are also doing this in the Field Digi team and all the great stuff that's happening over there. But again, thanks for walking through this model. And then look, we also wanted to, if we could, is talk about a couple of solutions that your Power Factory has delivered. So Nathan, I was going to give you dealer's choice here if there's one that you wanted to talk about, and then we can see how we're doing with time. But do you have a preference on either one of these 3?
We can probably take out the middle one, which I purchased labour benchmarking tool. And I guess this is probably a great example of where Power Apps can fit into the landscape or what sort of areas that you can focus on when you're talking about a delivery pipeline for Power Apps. So this tool is basically a consolidation of data essentially into one place or into one portal where users can go and view. Let's just say I had a project team I was about to set up. It's an agile project team. I need a BA, I need a product owner, I need developers. What this tool essentially does is provide visibility across all of our different vendors that we have and what their day rates might be, so we can make a calculated decision or build a project team based on that information. These things aren't necessarily processes that have been there previously, and it's not necessarily, it's not a productivity-based saving. It's not a hours back to the business saving. This is more cost avoidance associated, so gaining greater visibility across all of our different work types, especially in our procurement and supply chain space. We're doing quite a bit of work for that team and sort of, revamping that whole end-to-end process of how we negotiate different supplier metrics from start to finish. But yeah, this is one great example of sort of a great place for us to play when it comes to Power Apps, and that that cost avoidance space where there's other tools such as RPA tools which might necessarily be able to do the same things that we can do in these tools.
Yeah, for sure. Now this is great, and thanks for walking through one of the examples. Look, just for time here, I might move to phase 3 if everybody's cool with that, and talk about you mentioned earlier when we showed the and actually let me go back to it real quick just so everybody can see what we're talking about. So when we showed this evolution slide, you said you were all somewhere around here, around phase 2 or 3, and so going back to this slide. And phase 3 is now you want to enable business-led innovation and repeat. So how do you create a bunch of field digitization teams, if you will? Not that that's necessarily the goal, but a lot of citizen development teams that can go deliver their own innovation for their own business units. And again, doing it, you guys are working with IT, so you're doing it under the umbrella, if you will, the remit of your organization that cares, of course, about security and compliance and all these other things. And that's not to say that the field digitization team doesn't. I'm just calling that out because it's an important question that's probably come up multiple times in the chat. But so this was the last version of the animation that we saw. And so Nathan, ideally, and I know I'm just doing this simply one by one, but ideally you take the business unit that you're working with, you help them set up their own version of a digitization team, or you're enabling through your community these citizen developers that you mentioned, and then you move on to the next. Now, ideally, you're doing multiple at once as you go through, but pretty cool seeing the evolution of this model that, again, started here, moved to the single business unit, and now you're evolving and teaching people. And it's incredible seeing that evolution. Did I get that right, by the way? I just want to make sure I captured this effectively for you guys.
Yeah, that sounds spot on, Jay. So yeah, we're trying to get the capability of the rest of the business. It's not necessarily business unit by business unit, as you mentioned, but all up at the same time and build that capability across the board. And I guess the role that our team's playing as well is to try and build those tools that if a specific line of business or area has more citizen developers that have that skills and capability in one specific area, that we can, transfer or get those people to help out in another business unit. It doesn't necessarily need to, be led directly from that business unit. And our team's role in that is to build the tools to help that happen. And a great example of that is our support portal, which we've built. So any Power Apps which have been developed and put into production. We can assign support users, and those support users don't necessarily need to be from that business unit. They can be from anywhere. We can, if somebody's got spare capacity in the field digitization team, there's no reason why they couldn't come and support a Power Factory app. So that's essentially the model that we're going to, that it's more sort of a horizontal approach where people can help out, and we the capability of the workforce at the same time, and sort of fill in the gaps where we can. Just
2-3 minutes, and I don't want to put you on the spot, so we can go past it. Did you want to show another solution or talk through another one, or do you want me to move on and we can talk about the insights and advice that you guys would have for your peers? I'm cool either way.
Yeah, I think the last one I'll probably talk about, and I kind of mentioned it, was the Powerhouse. I know that you've got a couple of slides at the end there, Jake, but just this is kind of the tool which is essentially what we're going to focus on in the Power Factory, and this is for our citizen developers. So everything from, Powerhouse learning. So a lot of these applications and tools and processes we've taken from template apps on the Power Factory, on the Power Apps community, whether it be, components of the Champify app, where we've taken out the relevant components to Telstra and kind of, changed around some of the content that was Telstra specific. So everything from new environment requests to DLP policy changes. So we want to get some visibility around how many people want to use specific connectors and things like that. So when it comes down to approving or going through the IT processes or the security process to get these unlocked, we have some, visibility and metrics around how many people want that. And then our IT teams or our global businesses services team can fund those connectors to be unlocked and go through the relevant processes. So, I'll just probably leave it at that, Jace. But that's probably one of our key things that we're working on, which kind of ties the Centre of Excellence and what we're all about into one neat little package.
Yeah, I was going to say, you guys have this theme where it's you go off, you create, but then you kind of bring it all back together. And again, forgive me, because it's probably just second nature to you all now, but really important, because the opposite is potential tool sprawl, right? Where you've got a bunch of crazy solutions all over the place. And I know you do have a lot of Power Apps and flow out there, but you guys have done such a credible job of kind of centralizing and bringing this all together. So appreciate you sharing that. So just to kind of close out here, is we also wanted to invite everybody back here at the end to talk about some insights and advice that you've had. So looking back on your experience over the past couple of years, looking across the team, what has been the foundation of your success, and what advice would you all give to folks who are embarking on this journey for the first time? So I don't know if anybody wants to lead with this, and Richard, if you don't mind me, if you're still on, to put you on the spot here a little bit, but you had some great feedback when we first talked about this and we were discussing on the call. Could I maybe put you on the spot there a bit?
Oh, look, you can put me on the spot, but like these people, Jace, are just so talented. I feel really proud to work with them, and I can't keep up most of the time. And I find that if I go away for a week or a couple of weeks and I come back and I plonk myself into a showcase, I'm looking at stuff and the way that things are moving forward and how things iteratively get better. And if I cast my mind back a year, we'd look at the first iterations of Tech Plus and Leader Plus, and we were so proud of them at the time. And now I know the guys look back at them and they kind of look at them and think, oh, geez, that looks a bit janky, and it's a lot better now, and it's constantly evolving and moving forward. But the team talk about themselves as they're Power Apps and developing apps, but it's so much more than that. They all they understand the business, they understand the problems, but they also have then this weaponry of tools and ammunition and all these kind of great things that they can use to kind of help people solve those tools as well. And when they kind of come together and they storm on ideas, like holy moly, some of the stuff they come up with and some of the solutions, and I always think, I wouldn't have even thought about it like that. But how they go and build an app, and then a Power Automate, and then a Power BI reports, and it's even the old days you'd build a report and then people would action the report and do things, whereas now the team build a report and then Power Automate goes and does all the actions for them. So I think just the way that this team has kind of used that artillery and those tools they've got, but as like a leadership team and my exec, we just trust this team as well. Kind of just let them go, and they just kind of come up with all these awesome solutions, and keeping that vision and trying to keep everything centralized and together. the team have to wrestle it. They have to be on guard for that stuff a little bit as well, but they do a brilliant job. So, hey, look, that's an answer that's telling you 15 different things and probably not very focused in, but and I'd probably answer it 6 different ways as well if you ask me again and tell you about some of the other fantastic things the team do. But that's my answer this time round.
I thought that was great. I mean, you covered kind of everything that we had on here, maybe intentionally or not, but when I first talked to you guys, there was the credibility and empathy of, again, having been in those roles before, and now you've got folks who lived and breathed the experience who are actually creating the solutions, the trust and empowerment, which clearly just came through from your explanation right there, which also goes beyond and above to your leadership and the culture of Telstra. And then, again, failing small and fast. Sally, are you still on the call? Because you lived this experience as a customer success manager for Telstra, and I know you talk a lot about their culture and this freedom within boundaries. Is there anything you might want to add there from your perspective?
Yeah, I think I've really enjoyed watching the team. I remember the very first session I did, I think it started with Richard reaching out saying, we know we've got this technology, what does it do? I remember going into that session with, I was going to talk them through. I just got questions fired from everywhere. I think the curiosity and the passion that the team had was something else, something I've not seen before. And it's continued the whole way through. And I think the way the team have been able to really never lose that sense of wonder and curiosity. It's like they pick everything up. What does this do, and how can we be using those things? But always within that, and I think we use this sort of term there, the freedom within boundaries. So working within the technology team at Telstra, their philosophy was, testing to make sure that the tools and technology that they're making available to people are fit for purpose, that they meet all the sort of security and governance requirements. But then they're pretty much, I don't want to say hands off and step back, but they don't want to get in the way of the business being able to use the technology and the capability. So I think it's a really almost a symbiotic relationship of technology wanting their business to be able to progress and go forward and to be able to innovate. So they make platforms available for them to do so. And then you see teams like this that come along and just sort of pick it up and literally pull it all apart and what can we do and how can we sort of be pushing the boundaries. And I know some of the questions the guys have asked over time, and you think, wow, what are you guys up to? Like, you want to do what with what? And you think, oh, yeah. And I think that gets our Microsoft team really excited too. I know the very first call when we sort of showed some of our engineering team what the guys had been up to, and they were blown away. And I think that that sort of shared sense of, the passion and the curiosity for what can we actually achieve here has just been, something else that I've really loved working with Telstra from that perspective. There's always this can do, how can we innovate, what can we do, which has been, incredibly refreshing. And I think what the guys have demonstrated today is evidence of how that translates into outcomes for their business.
Yeah, I'm hoping the audience saw value in that, because I think it's, again, gents, you guys are incredible, and it's so fun having this discussion with you and talking through your journey, especially having spent time with Nathan well over a year ago and seeing how this has evolved so fast and the success you've had. So I just want to say, I want to be respectful of your time, because I know we're at it here. So I want to just say thank you to all of you. You guys are absolute legends. It's, again, very empowering and incredible to share your success. So thank you for spending some time with us. And if you guys need to run, feel free. I'm going to close out real quick with everybody, but thank you again so much for spending some time with us.
Thanks, Jay. Appreciate it.
Absolutely, gents.
Pleasure.
Thanks.
So just real quick to close out for those on the call, I'm just going to build this slide so you can leverage it because this is recorded. But we've seen a lot of different models, or at least 3 common models with organizations and centers of excellence around the globe. Telstra has a very unique model, I'd say is almost hybrid, which I love, that sits in between kind of coach and end-to-end delivery. But we'll leave this here for you so you can come back, you can watch it during the recording if you want to leverage some of this. And we're going to start doing some workshops if you have a customer success manager at Microsoft. Starting in early January, we'll help you out with these. And then if you want to keep this discussion going, give me a shout right there. That's my email. We've got a Teams team called our Superheroes Community, where we've got a bunch of your peers who have joined these calls and our workshops before, where we keep this discussion going, where we share more of these real use cases from interviews with customers around the globe. And so we'd love to have you there. But again, just a massive thank you and shout out to the folks at Telstra, to Sally for making this happen, to our awesome customer success managers who are behind the scenes answering your questions. It takes a whole crew to put these on. So hopefully you found some value in it. But thank you again, everybody, and we'll see you on the next one.
Thanks for having us.
Thanks, gents.